This episode is in partnership with Authority Magazine. Authority Magazine, a Medium publication, is devoted to sharing in-depth and interesting interviews featuring people who are authorities in business, pop culture, wellness, social impact, and tech.
My guest co-host today is my beautiful friend, Amy Ferris. Amy is an author, award-winning screenwriter, playwright, and warrior goddess and badass. She absolutely believes in people. And today's episode, we're joined by two dynamic advocates making waves in Pike County, John Hellman and Lisa Jenkins. They are co-founders of the Zimmermann-Pierce Democrats, leading the charge on LGBTQ rights and social justice in their community. From John's work as a policy expert and celebrated drag performer to Lisa's grassroots organizing and commitment to women's rights, John and Lisa are proof that local action can spark big change. Welcome, Lisa and John, to Believe in People.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, first I want to ask, I actually had to Google this. I had to look it up where Pike County was, but what I did, being a Canadian, what is it like living there for the two of you?
Well, currently it's snowing.
Yeah,
so
really.
Honestly, this is one of the most beautiful places I've ever lived in. It's part of what attracted my husband and I to come up here. We visited in dead of winter in 2017 when there wasn't a single leaf to be seen, and we still fell in love with how gorgeous it was in winter, which is like the worst season up here. But yeah, it's one of the most beautiful places I've ever lived in.
Huh.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
I'll third that.
That's right, Amy. So before we started, I asked Lisa how close everyone lived, and you're about 20 minutes away or so.
Oh, we're close.
Yeah,
we're close.
We're close.
That's great. And Amy, do you feel the same way? What led you to that area?
I slept with someone who lived here.
That's a great reason. Is this Ken or someone else?
Oh, it's Ken. Oh my God, Amy, don't go there. Don't go down that road. And then make sure you keep all of this in because it's no.
It doesn't matter because if it was someone besides Ken, he'd be missing now anyway. So
no, that's how I got here. Ken owned a little house that he would come to get away from the city and garden and a tiny hunter's cabin he had. And yeah, I slept with him and that's the whole story right there, Amy. But it is beautiful here. I mean, it's really beautiful. And folks like John and Lisa make it actually much more beautiful because it can be really hard living here.
Yeah, well, especially in the last 8 years or so. Very, very true.
So John and Lisa, I live here, so I get it. But if you can share with all of the listeners what makes it really difficult right now, because that's why it's important that this podcast go out to thousands of people who understand what's going on here.
Well, for me, I've been here 10 years, December. When I first moved here, literally was walking down the street to work one December day. On one side of the street, on the other side of the street was a group of young people, and the guy had a pride flag in his pocket, and they yell across the street, it's snowing, "Merry Christmas!" And I'm like, looking behind me like, are they talking to me? And I'm like, I live in It's a Wonderful Life. Like, this is where I live. And now, after the election, we've got people standing on the street screaming about your body, our choice forever, or trying to run an African-American over in a state park saying horrible things, they belong on a plantation. So that's the evolution of my experience here in the nutshell. John?
Yeah, I think so. My husband and I moved here. We were living in New York City at the time, and we were really shocked at the results of the 2016 election. And we wanted to go somewhere where we could make more of a difference. And it just turned out that we landed in Milford. And when we were doing research just about the area, we were like, oh, there's an openly gay mayor in Milford Borough. And it turns out I used to work in the HIV/AIDS nonprofit world. And I was like, oh, wow, Sean Strube. I know a Sean Strube that is a prominent HIV/AIDS activist, and it was the same person. So, like Lisa said, there was a sense of like this was just a cool small town. There were rainbow flags. There's an openly gay mayor. It's a gorgeous setting. And over time, and I think the pandemic was certainly something that facilitated this. The 2016, 2020, and 2024 elections, there has been a more overarching presence here that is very hateful, very um it's a bullying presence. It's one that diminishes free speech. It's one that is against this greater sense of building a community here. And now we're competing with that. And a lot of people are still struggling and they're not getting the answers to the problems in their life that I think common sense solutions would easily address, but they're getting a sense of identity out of this make America great again idea that unfortunately is being used against LGBTQ folks. It's being used against reproductive rights and women's ability to be in public that has been fought over for decades and decades in this country. It's just being used to get in a time machine and go back to a time when the four of us probably couldn't do this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it just makes it really, really difficult.
And to that point, I mean, we have taken. I'm going to ask you about the LGBT community, and also, John. I heard on Triversity that you said that being loud and vocal as an activist saved your life. So when you think, in fact, that would be kind of the opposite. So how much louder and how more vocal do you need to be now? And what needs to change because everyone's shouting? What do you need to do? What do we need to do?
And how do we do it to support you?
Yeah, and how
Yeah,
do exactly?
I think it's two things that we need to do. I think the nature of the kind of loud that we are has to change. This
Yeah.
sort of hostile, aggressive energy that everyone is carrying with them is wearing us all down,
Mm.
and it's not moving the conversation forward. So when we are loud, I think we need to pivot away from "we told you so," "you're getting what you deserve."
Yeah.
It's a really angry, kind of ugly sentiment that I don't know we would use in any other aspect of our life. So why would we think it would work in the sphere of politics? So I think when we're loud, we need to be loud about our joy and our love and our laughter and the beauty that exists in the moments that when we're together and we're not talking about anything in particular that we constantly experience. So I think we need to be loud in that sense. And then we need to be, I think, quieter when we talk offline, when we talk outside of the public view, and we need to have these conversations with our neighbors that is completely antithetical to these social media mudslinging that log on to Facebook and you'll see 20 examples in 5 minutes. But we need to just talk to each other and listen and ask questions and be curious because we've lost that completely. And all of these over determining social media memes and just all of this stuff is just not moving the conversation forward. So let's be loud about why what we're doing is good, and let's be really deliberate and soft and warm with our neighbors because I think we're all in pain and we're all just trying to find an answer. So let's provide a better alternative than make America great again because that is a horrible alternative for everyone.
You got me crying.
And I
Thank you.
think that's sort of changed our direction with Zimmermann-Pierce Dems a little bit, whereas we have decided to more invest in the community with our programs with the nursing homes and the vets and the food pantry, trying to give back what's been taken to create that foundation for those conversations.
Yeah, Lisa, talk a little bit about that. So, could you share what that is? So, first, what Zimmerman Pierce Democrats is, and then what you're doing. That'd be really helpful.
Well, sure. Zimmermann-Pierce Democrats is a political PAC or a club that was born out of our desire to be more activists in the community for the LGBTQ community, and then evolved into including women's concerns in there after Roe was overturned. And now, after this last election, has sort of morphed itself again into a multi-pronged thing where we're still paying attention to the legislation and those political concerns that we need to be aware of, but also now adding, like, Amy's and my Diva project has now evolved into those things into the community where, like, we're going to visit the nursing homes and make those forgotten folks feel cared for and remembered. And while we're doing a fundraiser to help the food pantry, the local food pantry that has lost funding, thank you very much, this administration, or we're striving to do a fundraiser in the fall for the local veterans fund, because we're already feeling the effects of those losses here already. So if you give back what's been taken away from so many people, it's a new way to start those conversations.
And I just want to add one thing, which I think is pretty important, is that both Zimmerman and Pierce were out as homosexuals. And I'm using the word homosexual because back then that's the word.
Yeah.
But I think it's extraordinary that the two of you, that y'all, and by the way, Lisa, you're the one who's doing, I'm supporting that entire wonderful thing that you're doing with the nursing homes, but that's you. That is the beauty of you.
But maybe we wouldn't have made those inroads if you hadn't planted the seed for the idea. So that's the way the whole community comes together.
I know, but I think it's important that, you get the incredible credit for something that you're doing that's bringing amazing joy to our community and enlightening people. That's important. And thank you.
It is important.
I love that you're doing that.
And so, for our viewers and listeners, could you share a little bit of background with the Zimmermann-Pierce, like who they were, and then how Diva fits into that, what that is, just so to give some context?
We're just divas.
Oh, just divas. Oh, I love it.
We're just divas. We are not women. We are divas.
Exactly.
I love it. I love it.
We are not men. We are diva. We are not women. We are divas. John, can you literally share Marie Zimmerman and James Pierce and the information and who they were?
Yeah, so Marie Zimmerman, she moved to Pike County in the early 1900s, and she was at the time one of the foremost metal workers in the world. She's very famous for her sculptural work, and she lived here with her partner, who was a woman and a very famous burlesque dancer, I think, at the time. And what was interesting about learning about this element of it is that the community accepted this. There aren't any reports about any kind of hostility or judgment. She was part of the community. And the Marie Zimmerman House is still an active institution in Delaware Township, which is in Pike County where Amy lives. And I will say for Charles Mills Purse, it's pronounced, and this is like the gayest thing, the gayest correction that I could make. It's purse.
Okay, thank you.
And it's
Exactly.
purse.
I
And
love that.
so James Mills Purse is the brother of Charles Purse, who again, he has it's a building in his honor on the 3 lane in Milford Township. And they come from an academic family, and James Mills Purse is quoted in 1897 in this anthology by Havelock Ellis, who is a very, very famous sexologist, which was the study of sexuality in the late 1800s. And he is quoted talking about acceptance of homosexuality in 1897. And part of the reason why, there are Democratic clubs out there named after the Stonewall riots, the Stonewall Democrats. And part of the reason why we wanted to be called after Marie Zimmermann and James Mills Purse is to prove to people that the LGBTQ community and acceptance of LGBTQ people is part of what makes Pike County, sorry, excuse me, it's part of what makes Pike County's roots. We're not just people that moved here from somewhere else.
Right.
This idea of community and acceptance is from here. So when people try to tell us to go back to New York City or go back to New Jersey, no, 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 no. Like this is our home too. And it's worth fighting for, a home that is for everyone. And that's what we should all feel, however we show up to this beautiful place that we all get to live in.
John, I have a question for you because I know that it's a local organization, but how do we make it national? How do you make it national? It's so important that this not just be here in Pike County, but in small towns everywhere. And how can we help facilitate that?
I think we can set an example. We live in, to speak to what we were talking about earlier, even though that there are all of these amazing things that were born out of Pike County, the birth of the conservation movement. There are artist colonies, utopian colonies. There are LGBT people that are part of the history. There are also less savory elements here. The Church of Wrought Iron, who is a very far right, anti-LGBTQ, anti-immigrant church, they are located in Pike County. We know that there are Proud Boys and Moms for Liberty chapters here. We know that there are people that worship Nazis here. There are lots of these other elements here. So I think the example that we can set where we know, Lisa and I, we have been the one and two people that have knocked on the most doors in the county over the last few years. And we knock on doors of Democrats, independents, and Republicans. And for the most part, we have had really good conversations with everyone. And we haven't really encountered people that express these wild opinions that we see online. They don't express that when they're talking just to John and Lisa, your neighbor. So if we can make an example out of proving to, I think, a lot of people that even in deep red Pike County, even in the Pike County that has all of these alt-right groups, we can come together and celebrate all of us. The earthquake that would cause is undeniable. So I think that's how we make this national, by setting the example that just because there might be a different letter next to your name, or there might be these other things happening, it doesn't define who we are. We have every opportunity from now until we have our last breath to define who we are. So let's take that opportunity.
And
I love that.
that's beautiful. And Lisa and John, what do we get so wrong about the LGBT community?
Ooh, great question.
So wrong. Well, there are no trans children having sex change surgeries. That's not a real thing, for one. There are no litter boxes in any bathrooms ever. That's another. Being read to by a drag queen is not going to make your child gay. I mean, the list is endless.
The list is endless.
The list is endless.
You know, I remember, John, in 2008, when it was Obama, right?
Hmm?
And there was a guy in Pike County, I don't know if he's still here, but there was a guy that was very active in KKK. And he was very, I think he even had like a photograph in his kitchen or something.
Oh, jeez.
And the most extraordinary thing happened, which was because Pike County was so involved with the Obama election and getting out and all of that, he voted for Obama.
Wow.
And he came to a rally and said it was time for him to change. And that was obviously a long time ago, but I think it goes with what you're talking about is kindness and joy rather than being angry and screaming at them and calling them, maggot morons and, whatever. And it's hard. It's really hard to do that. I don't think it was probably that hard back in 2008 because it was so new. Here we had this extraordinary human um, running for president and bringing us all together and the joy that was in that. But there seems to be so much more hate now. And it feels like it's come out of the woodwork and under rocks. And, people are being much more out with their hate. But I love what you're talking about using joy and that kind of communication. So it really does touch a human heart.
Mm-hmm.
And you both do that so beautifully.
I think that's what people I think also get wrong about the LGBTQ community. There, back in 2021, I did a fundraiser for some school board candidates, and I was there was a picture of me with one of my dear friends' daughter that was circulated in a lot of the social media sites, and I was called a pedophile very intensely for a while. And I remember a few comments that happened from people who knew me who said, actually, I know this drag queen. You should come to her show. She's pretty funny. And I think that's what that's what we have to fight. It's the desire to not speak to us, but to talk about us. Everyone is talking about us without having had an opportunity to really experience what we're even doing. So I mean, to Lisa's point about litter boxes and surgeries that no one is getting, they're just running away with this distortion of who we are without understanding that, like, the very nature of why we are choosing to be out and why we are choosing to organize our lives so that we can feel free is this are the same choices that I think a lot of people make in their lives. They look maybe different, but the dynamic is the same.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the LGBTQ community, and this has been the case since the 60s, we can teach people a lot about what love is, about what acceptance is, about what freedom is. And it's always been really wild to me that people will, on the one hand, talk about freedom, but then work to restrict ours. They don't know what freedom is. I don't think they even know what love is.
That's true.
And it doesn't mean that all of a sudden everyone is going to be gay and trans, but we, I mean, a universe that I would fully accept if it happened, but if people just took the opportunity to have a conversation with us, the amount that we have in common is so much greater than what makes us different. And I think people are afraid of that kind of unity.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
we see that on full display now. People are taking advantage of putting us in this box of we are evil, we are satanic. I mean, these are the words that are being used. We are um, mistakes. We are an affront to human nature. All of these things that we're doing when we're just trying to live our life.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, listening to you, John, it makes me feel like all of those folks really live in fear.
Yes, that's what I think as well.
And that they're afraid of how they feel because of the way that they were brought up. And, you know, love is love, right? You know, but listening to you right now, I kind of feel like, oh my God, it's all about fear. The fear of loving someone, the fear of expressing your intimacy, the fear of being out in the world fully.
Being different, yeah.
And I thank you for that, because it's important. Listening to you and Lisa, I'm kind of feeling like, oh my God, it's fear. It's not, you know, that they hate you. It's that they're afraid of their own feelings.
Yep. Or that
And
the world is changing, or that things will be different than they used to be.
yeah, you know, and I think it's really remarkable, because it really all, you know, it feels like it's because of what you're saying, that it really does have a clarity to it. It's not like, wow, they hate, you know, it's hate is something that is really born out of fear of love, fear of compassion, fear of what we feel, what we're feeling. It's like, oh my God, let's push that feeling down. Let's push that feeling down, and let's be really loud and really angry and show them, and then, you know, inevitably get, you know, caught in a bathroom in the airport. You know, it's that kind of, it's extraordinary, really.
Yeah, and I think that's what really makes this concept of make America great again so seductive. People are afraid,
Yeah.
and they're it's contradictory, it's not very coherent, but it still functions to create this idea that there used to be a time when we weren't this afraid.
Yeah.
But the reality is that that time never existed.
Right.
That's true.
And it never existed because, like, at- where do you point in history where America was great? Was it before a woman could get a credit card without her husband's approval? Was it before women or people of color in this country could vote? Like, where in the history of this country are you pointing to?
That's
And
true.
it's, you see this with the attacks on DEI and learning Black history and women's history and LGBTQ history. People are so afraid that they're willing to cut off their nose to spite their face.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think that's what we have the power to change. We know as individuals the struggles and the choices we had to make to get to where we are now, and we're imperfect. It's a work in progress, but there are certain things that we have accepted so that we can live our lives in a way that is kind and loving and warm. And I think people want that.
Yeah.
People want that. So
Yeah.
we have to give them that alternative and stop with the you voted to deserve this. It's, hey, you're upset and you're angry, and this person said some nice things to you that brought you in, but here's something even better. Like, what's our Project 2025?
Oh,
What's our vision? Like, what is it? You know, like, what is it? And I think we have the answers. We just have to oh my God, I'm looking outside and the snow has completely started squalling here. But like,
Wow. That's incredible.
but like,
So, John, what is the answer? Because I want to know, but with you and Lisa, what the converse we've taken so many steps back
Yeah.
that how do you have these conversations now when people are hating? Because with hate you can't love.
Lisa,
Hmm.
you have a daughter who's gay.
Yes.
So can you talk about how you feel as a mother right now? because I think that's so important.
That's, yeah.
I mean, you mean beyond the debilitating fear for her and other people in my life that I love, and the moments where you feel like it's too out of control and you don't know what to do. It's hard, and it's it's still conversations like she's not ready to have about her fear. We tried to do that the other day when she called, and she was like, "Mom, we can't do this. I can't do this." Um, so it's uh, the understanding of everyone's fear of this community boggles my mind because I've never had it, so it's not something I can relate to. But inherently, the bottom line is it doesn't change the person that we love, their biology having made them part of that community. It does not change the fact that that's my daughter and I still love her. She's an adult. Her choices are her own. Her issues are her own. It is my job to support them. And I honestly can say I haven't entirely figured out how to do that all the time, besides standing up for her community, besides standing behind her and the other people that I love that are among that community. And just which is probably why John and I had a conversation this morning. My nervousness today is based in the fact that I've jumped into this pool, this ocean of fighting for people's rights and standing up for them. But at the same time, that's not where I started my career. So there are days I feel like an imposter so that I can't really say if anything that I'm doing is the right thing. I'm just doing it.
Okay, and I'm just going to say, because I don't think I know anybody who doesn't feel like an imposter. And I think the fact that you've jumped in and that you've jumped in with John and that you're doing this and you don't know, your fear manifests. I think that's much more extraordinary than if you were to say, you know what, I'm doing this and I feel really, I think when we're scared and we do something,
Yeah.
then other people feel that empathy.
Mm-hmm.
Other people have compassion. I think what you and John are talking about is really truly about you're expressing your fear,
Mm.
maybe give someone else the courage to come out and express theirs. And so for me, you're really a diva and a goddess. And to me, you being able to share your fear is really what we need to be doing right now. I don't know anybody who isn't afraid.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
They're afraid of being, whether they're afraid that, a drag queen is going to go in the bathroom, or whether they're afraid of speaking their truth.
Right.
I think fear is fear, just like love is love. And I think the fact that you're doing that is extraordinarily brave.
Well, thank you. I just think that um, beyond the fear, when do we get so far from what's right is right? John has the right to live his life as he chooses, as the same as you do, the same as my daughter does. As long as it doesn't hurt the rest of the world, why does anybody give a shit? Like, live and let live, thank you, John Lennon, should be what we're all living by. Okay, I'm done now.
No, but that's adorable. What you're saying, though, is so important. And here's the other thing, too, is, I have a really hard time with people telling me or wearing T-shirts about the, COVID and the vaccine, my body, my choice, because they didn't want to get vaccinated, but they're going to tell me that I need to carry a baby full term. That kind of
Right.
that
When I was raped at 12 by my stepfather. Yeah.
the other, and John, I'm sure you know this, but the other piece that's extraordinary to me is because of, all of the pro-life and, but there's like 1% of gay couples have abused or have hurt their adopted child. 90% within heterosexual couples who have babies at the age of 12 or 13, or, adopt babies. There's so much violence within the heterosexual community and very, very, very little within the gay community when it comes to children
Right.
and adoption and babies. Nobody talks about that.
No, that's such a huge
Good
thing.
point. That's a good point.
Misinformation about so many things, so many things. It becomes exhausting to just try and answer everything with the truth all the time because there's so much of it, so much of it.
How do you maintain your well-being as activists? What do you do to help yourself?
Please say you drink wine, please.
I drink wine and hide under the covers for a day or two, and then I reach out to John and go, "Okay, I'm back.
Well,
How are you?"
I
Yeah.
did want to find out more about Bell Pepper because she's fabulous.
Oh,
Oh
I
my
did
God,
watch,
she's
I
fabulous.
did see a couple of clips, but
Nobody
anyway,
does a soapbox like Bell Pepper.
yeah.
which
Yeah.
I
Talk
love the
about
name.
bell pepper. And
Yeah,
John, talk about bell pepper.
yeah, I think I've been doing drag for 8 years now, and I didn't know that creativity, theater, art, and performance were going to be things that really fed my soul in a way that I needed to call upon in moments like these. And I when you are a drag queen outside of like a major city that has institutions and gay bars and stuff like that, you're normally performing in places that all kinds of people are going to be coming to the show. People will walk in and be like, I didn't know there was a show here, but so I'm going to stick around. And it's it's very funny to me that, and Lisa's seen me quite a bit, that I get away with being, I mean, quite progressive on my soapbox. And I like to pick on people, and I like to just like get people to react and interact and just be in the moment. And it's one of my absolute favorite things on the planet. And I would not be able to sustain
Right.
this other stuff without being able to just transform into something else and let her do the work. And like Bell Pepper, she isn't anxious. She's not afraid. She is bold.
Mm.
She's not afraid to go up to any human in her space to just engage. Whereas John kind of needs a break sometimes. And so when John can't do that, Bell Pepper will. So yeah, it's been, which it's when people say all these wild things about me, I never once really be like, well, oh my God, they're saying all these things, because I know they haven't come to a show. So I mean, if you come to a show and then you're like Bell Pepper's awful, then I'm like, well, okay. But for all these people who've never seen me perform, I'm like, guys, meet me after you buy the ticket because you really don't know what you're missing. And
Mhm.
yeah, it's really been a gift. My husband and I work really, really hard on um creating just a fun experience no matter where we are. I haven't done the same show twice. It's always been different, which is a could be a creative nightmare, but very worthwhile.
Okay, John,
Wow.
can you talk a little bit about your gorgeous husband, please?
The
How did you
keeper of
meet?
the keeper of all the glue for all of us.
Ah,
That's
the
John
glue,
Henry.
the
Yeah.
glitter glue. How can you talk about how you met? And his husband is extraordinary.
Yeah, so his name is John Henry, and we will be celebrating 10 years married this September. And we met on we were both chosen to play on the same volleyball team in an LGBTQ sports league in New York City, the largest sports league in the country. And it, it the rest is
The
the
rest
rest just
is
unfolded. I mean,
history.
it's wild to me too that we met in a place that is under such scrutiny now, like people playing in sports,
Oh, wow.
when it was that kind of a space for me and for him and for many others. And it was trans women, cis men. I think there was a straight guy. I think there was one, but it was overwhelmingly everyone else. And it was a lifeline for us because we get to just socialize and be who we are without having to explain or without having to have to do a second look if someone's giving us like some skepticism on their face. And we met and we bonded as teammates first, and then we became everything else. But
That's one.
The
he's
power.
someone that
That's wonderful. Wow.
yeah, he's someone that really helped me um open the door to being a creative. And like we work together on everything, and it's yeah, he changed my life completely. I would not be here if it wasn't for him.
You know what I
Wow.
love? You know what I absolutely love about your relationship is that he is, you have this level of equality that even though you're kind of like the shining star as Bell Pepper, he is right there,
Mhm.
literally right there as an equal. It's like he lets you shine, he lets you be, he gives you, he encourages you and supports you. And it's just the beauty of that relationship is
I
incredible.
I appreciate that. And back to what we were talking about before. We grow up in a world that teaches us how to be human through the lens of gender and heterosexuality. And there is not a
Mhm.
playbook about how two men should be married to one another. And I think part of the challenge, and sometimes it's been easy, sometimes it's been hard, sometimes it's really required a lot of trial and error, but we have had to really be deliberate about how are we going to live with each other and how do we build a life. And I think that is and beyond, like, there used to be this cultural trope of asking a gay couple who is the man and who is the woman, because that was the only language that people had to
That's
express
right.
being in relationships with each other.
That's right.
So I think, and not to say, I mean, there's examples of relationships that can teach people how to be better humans everywhere. And I would hope that, you know, if if people see Bell Pepper and John Henry or John and John Henry, that it gives people an opportunity to rethink, like maybe I'm not limited by the cultural understanding of what it means to be human. And that is a terrifying place to be in, because if your whole cultural archive tells you, hey, you're a woman, this is what you need to do and you'll be great, and turns out that that's not the case, what a terrifying, destabilizing place to live in.
Yeah.
Because, like what Amy was saying before, um, the violence that happens in heterosexual relationships, the number one cause of death for pregnant women is homicide.
Yes.
And
And what
like,
is it? One
what is happening here?
And we don't talk about it.
No.
We
Oh,
don't,
and
we
what's
don't.
the national statistic? 1 in 3 women will be a victim of sexual assault of some sort in their lifetime, and many more than once.
Right. And the rates of domestic violence are pretty similar. And which isn't to say that that stuff doesn't exist in same-sex relationships, but the point is, like, we have so much to teach each other.
Yeah.
So log off, maybe delete your Facebook account, and let's get in the same circles
Yeah.
and just interact with one another. And
And
I think that's what, but like John Henry and I, like that is one of, I think, the things that bonds us the most is that whenever we're going into a social situation, whether that's a bell pepper show or party or whatever it is, like, how are we going to show up at this place? Because we want people's experience of us to be, um, hey, those two people were kind, they were funny, they were entertaining, and they made the experience more enjoyable.
I'm going to give you a compliment, John, that I don't think I've ever given anybody else. So when I see you and John together, it reminds me so much of my grandparents. And
Oh,
they were together an incredibly long time. And the love that they had and respect that they had for each other was extraordinary. You know, coming from Russia, my grandfather was a Trotskyite. He left Russia, when Trotsky, but at my grandfather's funeral, my grandmother said one thing, and it reminds me so much of you and John. She said, I liked him so much. We knew that she loved him, but she liked him.
Yeah, that's profound.
And
Yeah.
that's what she said. That was the only thing, John, that she said. She got up, this frail, gorgeous, gorgeous Bessie, and she said, I liked him so much. And when I see you and John, it reminds me of that because you have that mutual respect and you have that love. And it's really something that we all need to see more of.
Mm.
And I'm not just saying this because I love you and I like you and I think you're extraordinary. I'm saying it because I think that we need more of that.
Yeah.
We need to
It makes
more.
one wonder if in the previous generation, maybe two, we concentrated so hard in empowering our daughters and our nieces and our nephews, and we tried to encourage the LGBTQIA community to live their truth and speak their truth and come out of that closet. But we did not, in all of those lessons, teach straight white men how to deal with those empowered people.
Oof.
Wow, that's powerful. Yeah, I mean, wouldn't it be grand if we had just how to live as a human and how to interact as a human and even as a couple. What does that look like? Not roles. I think that the thing that happens is when we assume roles, we think we need to be a certain way, and
Right.
that fucks us up.
So hard. Yeah.
As soon as we do that. So what's the uphill battle right now for you?
And how do we support you? And how do
Yes.
how do we get people to donate?
Yes.
Purse. I think I said that right.
You
no, that
did.
was
How do
perfect.
we how do we how do we make folks on a national level embrace this? How do we
So,
help you
so
both?
to if people could go to zpdems.org to donate. That's zpdems.org. But I think the biggest uphill battle right now is the battle against disinformation.
Yeah.
And we know that the social media landscape right now is dominated by voices on the far right. And they are talking about us whether we are there or not. So, how do we build greater trust in our local communities so that not that people will listen and take our word as Bible, but people will listen and consider what we have to say against what they're hearing from other sources. And that is, I think, the biggest challenge that we will continue to face. And something that I'm really proud of, I think what Lisa and I have in common and what Lisa and I just have spent so much time doing is that we just want to talk to people.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
And let's just like the in-person talking experience can be transformative. And
yes.
it's hard to, if Lisa and I show up at your door, disinformation can't exist in the human interaction because you're talking to two people
Right.
that have a life and have a voice and have dreams and have fears. Like we're here and we're talking to you that also has dreams and fears and desires. And how do we create more spaces like that where there isn't this wild skepticism about, oh my God, it's a Democrat. Everything that she says is bullshit.
Right.
Or, oh, that's a gay person. Oh, that's a drag queen. They're dangerous. Keep them away. Like, there are so many forces trying to keep us down while they share everything about who we are. And we have to change that.
And back to the question about, how does ZP Dems get their information out there, or how can people see or become involved with or know about? John, don't you think anybody should sign up for the community newsletter that we do for everyone if they want to see what we're doing and how we're doing it?
This is called Believe in People. And I want to ask you, Lisa, and then John, why do you continue to believe in people?
If you stop believing in people, then you start letting the darkness creep in, and then you become the thing that you never wanted the world to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
I still believe in people because the future that we're fighting for does exist in the present. And last night I went to an event at Camp Out Poconos, which is a campground that my husband and I are part of. And they had an event for the Transgender Day of Visibility. And we were in a room with primarily trans and gender nonconforming people, celebrating people's stories, celebrating joy. And when you look around the room, there were flags everywhere, and there were smiling faces, and there were volunteers, and there were just, we constantly have examples of what the future could look like. And that's why I try to keep fighting, because there are people here living in the future already.
Oh, I love
And the
that.
future is possible
I'm happy to hear that.
because yeah, and it can be in moments where you have a conversation over the phone. It can be in spaces like that. The future is here, and we just have to expand it.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Lisa. Thank you so much. And Amy, thank you, Amy Ferris. Thank you so much for putting us together and making this happen. Without you, it wouldn't have. So I'm really grateful.
Yes. Thank you.